Welcome to the Outlook Time Management class here in the library instruction room. There are a few rules I'd like to cover about the library and this room in particular. In this room, there's no food, drinks, or conversation. It's a quiet study area. If you want to have food or drinks or talk quietly, please sit at the computers in the outer room. You must have a student ID/library card. It's the same thing. In order to check out materials in the library, even reserved items which can only be used in the library for the most part. No card, no service, basically. College policy is that cell phones be on vibrate inside of buildings, and then if you need to take a call, you go outside the building. We will allow you to go into a study room and shut the door if there's a vacant one for you to take your phone call. Please don't use them in the restrooms. Log into the computer using your MyCVCC account versus using the library account. If you do that, then whatever you saved to the desktop or to the documents folder will be your private folders and private items. If you save them in the library account and you don't delete it and empty the recycle bin, anybody that logs into the library account in any computer can get a hold of your document. It is between you and the instructor and that student who wrote the work. The other thing is, make sure you log off all of our computers here on the campus. Make sure, even if you use the library account, that you log off. And don't ever shut down our computers on campus because they get updates at night. They do go into a sleep mode, so they do conserve energy. Just either log off, or if you're having problems or issues with that computer, you may restart them because sometimes that'll fix the problem. But never shut them down, please. Okay, let's get into Outlook. And what I'm going to do is that I pretty much cover Outlook, which I'm assuming that if you don't have Outlook on your computers at home, a lot of what I will cover will be similar to the Office 365 calendar and features and so forth. So a lot of that you'll be able to use. To get access to Outlook, what I have to do is go down with the down arrow, go over to about the 4th or 5th column where it shows Microsoft applications, which is right here on the first column. I've got running my mouse over. Then I'm going to go over to Outlook 2013 and open it up. Now it's asking me for my username and password, and I'm going to click on remember my credentials. I guess I forgot to do that last time. Now, if you have Outlook at home, some of this you won't get because it's your own private personal computer. I'm using this on a network. I'm logged into my account, so that's why I'm getting some of this. And what first thing I'm going to show you is on my calendar, you'll see I've got things heavily color coordinated, and every color means something specifically to me. And that's part of what I'm going to cover today is how to do this and how to use those coordinations and other buttons to make your life a little bit easier. Now if I click on an item, you'll notice that the screen at the top changes and you'll see categories. If I click on categories and go down to all categories, that'll let me set up my categories. You'll see I'll have some at the very top that are named numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I do that because I use those very specifically in another aspect of Outlook, and I'll show you in a little bit. But I want them at the top and I want them together so that I know what the group is. And I can quickly see them. So that's why I put the number in front. If you're going to have more than 9, make sure you start them off with 0, 1, 0, 2, because it treats it as characters, not numbers. And 0 will come up right after 1 if you don't do that. So if you're going to have more than 9, then put 0, 1. Or if you want all of them in a certain order and you want to control that order, you can do that as well. You notice I have some others there like Business Capella University. That's where I'm getting my PhD that I'm currently working on. I have church, I have CVCC, which I use heavily, and so forth. And it goes down the list. You notice that there's colors. What I can do is whatever is highlighted, like urgent is highlighted. If I go to delete, it will delete that one. Don't go by the check marks. It's whatever you have highlighted. Frequently I do that. I forget I've got one highlighted. I'm thinking it's going to do the check mark, and I wind up deleting something and have to figure out what the heck I deleted. I can go click on one of these. Well, it's it's not bringing up my edit. I don't know why it's not bringing up my edit, but let's say I want to do a new one. I would just say new on the far right side. I would give it a title of what I want. It can be anything you want, and then I can pick a color. Unfortunately, they don't give us the color palette, which would give us a more variety of colors, so these are the only ones we have right now. You can also put down a shortcut key, but you have to use like the control and a function key to use those shortcuts. My hand's always on the mouse, so I don't bother with those shortcuts because I find it, I never think to use them. And as you can see, I have others down here. If I want to delete one, again, make sure it's highlighted. I can double click on it to rename it. Oh, that's why it is on this version. I just double click on it to rename it. Come on. There we go. See here, I can rename it by typing over that. Or if I want to delete it, then make sure it's highlighted, and then I click the delete to get rid of it. And I'll say yes. It'll show you in the box what you're deleting so you can make sure you've got the right thing. It says not in master category list. That just means it wasn't in my master list, and I may need to, and maybe that it was on a calendar item, and so it's no longer in the master category list, and if it was on a calendar item, it'll come up as a blank one instead of showing training. I can always put it back if I'm not sure, and put the color back as well. I think I had, it was more bluish color. Some computers will come up with slightly different nuances of color, so you have to kind of play around with it. I can always put it back. Now, if I click on an item, like here on my desk, oops, let's get out of that. If I right click on an item, it'll bring up a little menu. You can notice at the top it says open. I can double click to open it. I can quick print that item. I can go down and I can do private and mark it as private. And if I share my calendar, like if you're at work, then they'll see those items as private and they won't see what you've got on them. I can go down to category. And this is one way you can assign a category, or you can say clear all categories, and it'll take that color bar off of it. That's what the categories do for you. And I can delete that one. Now this one happens to be a reoccurring item because I happen to work the desk on Mondays from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And so it reoccurs every week. And I'll show you that in a second. So when you go to delete an item and it's reoccurring, you'll see that delete series. That's what it means to delete all of them that reoccur. So be careful with that. If I delete occurrence, it deletes just this one. Now let's look at this one since it is a reoccurring one. The first thing it's going to ask me, do you want to open just this one or do you want to open the series? If I open just this one, it only changes that one item. If I open the series, then whatever I do changes everything in that series. Now, if you change just one item and then later open the series and make a change, you're going to wind up overwriting the ones that you changed individually, so you got to be careful with that. I'm going to say open the series. The first thing you'll see is I've got on their desk, and that's what shows on my calendar. It's color coordinated. It says CVCC item. Up here, I can put down how many minutes, or I can put down hours, or I can put down days to remind me before my appointment's due. You can even put 0 minutes, which means remind me right at the time. I'm going to put 5 minutes because usually that's what I need to run and powder my nose and get my papers together to go work at the desk. If I click on reoccurrence, this will show me time, which I get to set what time this reoccurs. The duration, it just shows and calculates for me how long it is. I can either do daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly. I've got once per week, and I've got it on Monday. Now, if you modify a reoccurrence, be careful, because this start date was the first time you set it up. If you modify it and it's 3 months later and you don't change this to the current date, it's going to go back 3 months and put them all back on your calendar again. And I do that sometimes. So what I do, I just reopen the currents, change it to the current date, and then save it again instead of deleting every one of them. It's just a little quickie to help you fix things. You can say there's no end date, so it goes on forever. You can say end after, and you can put it in or do it only 10 times and then quit. Or you can say end by and give it a specific date. Usually if I want it to reoccur on Mondays and I want it to end by, I usually put it in by Tuesday, because it's going to reoccur on Monday, and that way I get my last date in there. I don't know, because I haven't played with it to see if you can put the date, if it will reoccur that date. I just haven't tested it to make sure. I can click remove reoccurrence to get rid of the reoccurrence, or I can just say, okay, I'm going to say cancel because I don't want this dating back to January. Now again, on categorize, I can come out here and I can just click on one of these to put what category I want on there. If I want to clear the category, I can just say clear all categories, and it takes my color coding off. But I can just go back to it, click on CBCC, and put it back out there. Again, I'm going to X out of this, and I'm going to say no, not to save, because I don't want to change it. Now, one thing that I do is my yellow ones, because they show up the easiest, I use those for one-time only sporadic stuff, so that I can quickly and easily see them, what they are. And I use, for instance, holds I know are always blue, and so whenever I see a hold one, I know it's a report. I have to go run to make sure that any books we have on hold, I get a list of them. The little bright green ones are personal stuff that I have for remembering to take my medicine, because I can never remember. If it's not on my calendar, I don't remember it at all. So it's gotten to be really bad for me. If you see a little down arrow, which you do see on February 2nd, that means there's more items out there, and I can click that down arrow to see. Because like for instance, at 8:30, I've got a phone call with my statistics professor set up. So I put everything in here, and I always make sure that I have the little reminder bell go off at a certain time. Now for me, because Outlook is on a server here at work, I can sync it with my iPhone. And I can have all this stuff and all the colors show up in my calendar on my iPhone, and because I set up my email to work with my iPhone. Now, if you have a personal computer at home, I don't think you can do that, because I think it has to be on a server that's accessible to the internet. But you know, you can always do a help and Google that, or call Microsoft. I don't know what they charge per incident to see if that's capable. As far as I know, I don't think this works with Gmail. Outlook works with Gmail, which is your student email and stuff, but you could always check with the help desk to see. Now, if you're in Office 365 and so forth, I believe a lot of what I'm showing you today can be used in Office 365. I just haven't worked with that. At the top, you'll see there's today, which is the view I have right now. I can click on next 7 days, and it will show me Sunday through Saturday. I can click day, and it will show me whatever day I have highlighted. Today would be today's date, the first one. Work week would be Monday through Saturday. Week is Sunday through Saturday. Month is where I like to keep it, because I like to see a global view of my calendar so that I can quickly see what I'm trying to find, but I can always switch to one of the others as necessary. And schedule view to me is kind of useless because it's not always easy to tell what's what in this view, because it gives you such skinny bars. So like I said, I usually stick to month. If I can't remember an appointment that I have and I don't remember what month it's in, I can put it in here and search it, and it will start searching, and it will show me in a grid-like form, just like a spreadsheet, where I have that particular calendar event. And this happens to be a yearly one that I have. If I just backspace over that, it will show me all of my calendar items in a spreadsheet. I can click on subject. Oops, all right, do that to me. Sometimes it doesn't play well. Let's see, let's do. All right. Let's see if I can get this to work this time. There we go. I went too far back with my backspace. This shows me all my items, and then I can click on subject. Well, in my office, I can click on subject, and it will show me everything by subject alphabetically so that I can see items. And that's an easy way to go delete a huge group if you're trying to delete a group of items and you don't want to go delete them individually. If it's a reoccurrence and you delete the series, it will get rid of every entry. So you don't have to do that if you're doing reoccurrences. I also like keeping a 2-month view on the left side of my screen. Now let's look at adding an item. What I can do is just click anywhere on a date, right click and say new appointment. It gives me the date, which is today's date because that's what I clicked on. It starts off at 8 a.m., but I can scroll down and I can highlight a time and I can put a start and end time. I can say what this is. I can put 2 items, top and bottom. The bottom's for location. I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. Let's say it's 8 and 8:30. I can say I want to be notified 30 minutes ahead. And I can categorize this and I can just say I'm teaching at this time. Again, you can put a reoccurrence if you're going to do this more than once. I can say save and close. And if you'll notice right here, it's got my item on February 28th. And if you notice what I had in location, it puts a semicolon and it gives me my location. So this room number is 31111. Again, to get rid of that, I would just right click and say delete. If it's not a series, it won't pop up that submenu. It'll just say delete. And once you delete it, it's in the deleted folder, just like your mail is. And as you can see, you can use this to color coordinate things and to remind you what you're doing, when and where, and very easily. And if it's color coordinated, as long as you're not mixing that you use this color for multiple items, I can tell by color now, because I've worked with this for so long, what something is very quickly. I can tell what it's for without even having to look at the words in the text box. Okay, let's look at mail for a second. Mail can be used with color coordination too as well. And the first thing I want to show you is on the left side of my screen here, with these little hashes, I've got folders. So you can create a folder for each class, and you can create subfolders within that folder to take your email and put them into folders and subfolders. And I'll show you in a second how to mark an email and move it to a folder quickly in a few minutes. Now what I do is I put these hash marks in front of mine so that they all show up at the top of my screen right after deleted. These are system folders. They're going to always show at the top. But all these folders show up here. Otherwise, they'll show up alphabetically dispersed in here. And I want them all together. The one I want on the very, very top is my to-do folder. So I put 3 hash marks because a hash mark is a little underlying character. It's a special character, and it will pop up to the top of my list. And I just played around with that and found that worked. I could probably use numbers, but that's what I liked using that because it was easier to read my verbs. So to create a folder, I just right click on my name up there and I say new folder. And it will give me a blank spot just like it does on computer when you create a new folder. And then I just do the underscore and put in as many as I want, and then I say whatever I want to call this. And then I click in the white space, and you'll notice on the left side I've got an example folder. I can click on that folder and say new folder, and it will create a folder underneath that folder. You don't have to put hash marks on these because they're going to be underneath that folder unless you want to control what order they go in. Again, the to-do on my list, I put 3 because the others have 2. I just put 2 to make it easier to see them. And because it has 3, it shows up at the very top. Now, if I want to get rid of that folder, I just right-click and I can rename the folder, I can copy the folder, I can move it. I want to delete it, and if I delete the folder, then whatever is in that folder is going to get deleted too. So if you don't want to lose your stuff, move it first before you delete it. Now if you notice that on statistician, I've got a little arrow next to it. That means I've got subfolders in that. If I click on it, you'll see I've got one called bills underneath that. And I should have 2, but I don't think this thing is updated completely because at the very bottom it says all folders are up to date, but I think I have 2 under that normally. If you look at CVCC, I've got 3 subfolders under that. I have some things in CVCC, but I have some things in those subfolders as well because those are, like the first one is my emails to buildings and grounds, B&G. Okay, that's it about folders. But the reason why I wanted to talk about folders, let's go back to my inbox. If you notice over here at the third one, at the far right, I've got something color-coded called one urgent. Now, one thing you have to be careful about, what I'm going to show you next, there's a difference between these quick steps, which is right here in the middle at the top, and categories. I happen to call my quick steps and some of my categories the same thing. I wanted to do two things. I wanted a quick step called urgent, and I wanted to label it as an urgent category. And so I wouldn't forget to put those two together. I just called them both the same thing. In my categories, remember I showed you that at the very beginning, I labeled that one as number 1 urgent because I wanted it at the top of my list. So if I go up here to this second one, Rebecca Watts, and I click on my quick step up above and say urgent, what it's going to do is it's going to put it in my to-do folder and it's going to mark it as urgent. Now I did that earlier, but I'm going to show you how to create those in a second. So if I go to my to-do folder, you'll see, because I've got those labeled as 1 urgent, 2 when possible, 3 waiting, it puts those in order as well. But these are categories, and so I had to do my categories that way. But we're going to show you in a minute how to set up that urgent quick step. So here it is under my email in my urgent folder. Now, let's say if I go back to the inbox, I decide, whoops, I don't really want that in my to-do folder. I want to keep it in my inbox. All I have to do is grab it with my mouse, my left mouse, and pull it over to the inbox and drop it in my inbox. And so there it is, back in my inbox. But you notice at the far right, it still has the category urgent. I can leave that there. But if I don't want that there, what I can do is either I can double click it and clear the category, which I'll show you. I can come here, I can go to categories, and I can say clear, which is 3 mouse clicks. Or I can have a quick step called clear category, and I can say clear, and it just takes off that category. It did those 3 key clicks for me, so I don't have to do them manually. So let's look at how we do quick steps. First thing I want to do is right click on urgent and say edit. If you notice on urgent, at the very top I called it urgent. And I think when you create it, you can give it a color as well. And then I said the first step I want to do is I want to move to a folder, and that was in my list of items to do. So you can't tell it, type that in, you have to select what do you want to do. This is my function, what do I want to do? Then the next thing I do, since it said move to folder, it'll give me a list of my folders, and I said put it in my to-do folder. So that was my first step. The next step I did, I said I want to categorize this, and when I categorized it, I said I want to do this as urgent. I want to categorize it as urgent. And so that's why when I clicked on that, the action it took was that it put it in my to-do folder and it marked it with a category of urgent. So when I look at my to-do, they're sorted by importance. Like my waiting for reply, I know I can't do anything until I get a reply email or a reply phone call. So that's what I do with those. Now, and you can also do a shortcut with this, but again, I find that I'm on the mouse, so I don't bother with the shortcut. To create one, you have to click over, it says create new. And what I do is I give it a name, so that this one I could call, let's see, I can't think of what this, let's say move Capella. I want to move this to Capella. To choose an action, I can say move to a folder, copy to a folder. Move takes the email and puts it in that folder, and it's no longer in whatever folder it used to be. So I can use these shortcuts in any folder, in my deleted items folder, in my sent items folder. These shortcuts can be used anywhere. Or I can say to copy, which means it leaves one there and puts a copy of it in my folder. I can say delete the message, but I can right click and delete it just as fast, so I usually don't bother with that. I can say permanently delete, which means it's gone forever. If it's deleted, a lot of times if you're on a server, they can retrieve it from a backup, but not always. I can mark it as read and so forth. So I have all these things I can do to it. So I'm saying move to a folder. And it says choose a folder. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to say other folder, and it gives me my list of folders. I'm going to come down to Capella and I'm going to say okay. And then I can add an action. I can add, for instance, I can say mark this thing as unread so that I can move it to my Capella and mark it as unread, or I can move it and I can set a category message to it. And my category message would be whatever I want to mark it as one of these. And again, this is why in my categories I put 1, 5, I don't know why my other categories, this thing is acting screwy. I don't know why it's not showing me all my other categories, but all my numbers would show up at the very top so that I can come here to all categories and click one and then say okay and put it on there. And you'll see it says 2 when possible. When you first on a server create a new Outlook session, which I forgot to do yesterday, it takes a while to update that particular computer. That may be why it's acting a little silly. And then I can say finish, and you'll notice that it says move Capella inside my folder there. It's got it there at the very top. Now I think, I can click on that one and it'll move whatever I've got highlighted, or I can say move, and I can move this down or in my list. But again, these are just things. Whoops, I'm moving all these files. I want to delete that quick because I don't want it anymore. But if you click on it, you can't click on it to select. As soon as you click, it does it. So if I go into my Capella, we're going to see that I put some of these in my Capella folder, and I'll move them back later. Again, I can show you. Again, to move, you just left click, hold it, move it to inbox, and let go. And your inbox should highlight with a blue there, or whatever color it uses. You should highlight it, and then you just let go of the mouse click, and then it's back in your inbox again. Okay, any questions on those quick steps? Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, it's a lot to take in, but you can also Google quick step, Outlook quick steps, and you can usually find videos on the internet or YouTube for telling you and showing you how to do these things. So if you just remember the fact that it's called quick steps, or when you see Outlook, it's called quick steps, you can video it. If you're here at the library and we're not too terribly busy, I can sit down one-on-one and show you again. I don't know if you can set up you might be able to set up Outlook on your login if you log in under your ID, but you'd have to set up your own mail account with that. And you can set up other mail accounts with Outlook and so forth. It didn't have to be just an Exchange server, because like at home, I don't do it here at work because I don't want people at work seeing my personal account. At home, I have my work email and I have my personal email account in Outlook. So all I have to do is go into Outlook and I've got access to both. I don't have to log into different email accounts. Okay, so again, if I go to categories and go down to all categories, this is where I set up my color coding system for putting, if you notice over here at the far right, it's got categories. So in categories, it shows me my color codings. And it's very useful when you're using this with calendar. Now, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 9 I use with my quick steps, and I just happen to remember that. The business, Capella, all the way down to the bottom here, I pretty much use with my calendar, with a few exceptions. I use some of these categories for keeping track of people that I want to stay in touch with. So if I go to people, you'll see that I've got my people by categories, and I can close them just to see the categories. So I've got some people that are just business people that I know. I got some people that are my university where I'm getting my degree. I got some people that I work with here at CVCC that I want their email address, not just in the big address book that we have for work, but maybe I want to hear my personal address so I can find them quickly. And then I have people in my categories for when I'm working on my dissertation, or people that I find as contacts for my dissertation. And so all I have to do is click on the arrow, and it shows me that all their categories happen to be business, which you'll see color-coded at the far right, and these are all the people that I have in my business. Now I can quickly change these by highlighting the first one, highlighting this last one, just like you do in any other Microsoft clicking. I can right-click and I say clear categories, and then I can go to categories again and assign a different category. Or I can just do 2 or 3, by doing the first one and shift key and maybe go down to that one. Or I can do certain ones by using the control key and highlighting 1, 2, and 3 and changing their categories very quickly. But I don't like looking through my entire list trying to find people, so I like to break them into groups so I can find them much more quickly. So if I look under dissertation coach, I just have a few people that I'm working with right now in regards to my dissertation topic and getting prepared to do my dissertation in 2016. And then under the Capella, I have all the professors I've worked with, a few other contacts at Capella that I need to keep track of, and so forth. So the nice thing about this is that when I go back to my email, which I click on the lower bottom, go back to mail, I can say new email, I can say to. Now it's going to default to the CVCC global address book, but if you have this on your computer, what it's going to default to is my personal contacts. And then I can select by contact who I want to get access to. Now unfortunately, this doesn't, I can say more columns, but this doesn't break it down by categories that make it easy for you to work with. But I can go into advanced find and search by name if I need to. But anyway, I just like having the color categories and so forth, especially when I go over to people. So if I'm trying to find somebody I'm looking for, I can find them in a much smaller list and work with them. And again, when I do new contact, I just go over to categories and select what category I have. For instance, at home, I use the doctor, even though I use it on my calendar for appointments. In my contacts at home, I also have a category called doctors, and all my doctors are under that red category. So I can keep them kind of coordinated so that I know red always means doctor, either appointment or doctor contact. And again, if you've got your Outlook working with your email, a lot of times you can get that working with your cell phones as well, depending on what you have and so forth. I don't know if it has to be an Exchange server to work with your cell phone or how that works. So we have to find out. Now here at the library, we can have contacts for me, I can have contacts for the library. I just don't happen to set one up for library as a separate group. But if I go back to calendar, in my calendars, you'll notice that I've got my team members. They could have calendars and they could share them with me. Anything they mark private, it's going to show up to me as private. But if they don't mark it private, then I can see that they're busy. And then when you set up an appointment, you can specify, am I busy, which I think is the default. Is it working elsewhere, like I'm off campus? Is it tentative? I'm sorry, there's out of office. Working elsewhere would mean me somewhere else on the campus. And free would mean that I'm working, but I'm free if you want to interrupt me, basically. So I could use those. I don't share my calendar because we just don't happen to do that here in the office because it's a small office and we're right here. So we just talk to each other. But we could have different calendars for different people, and we could have a library calendar. So instead of printing out a calendar with everybody's schedule, my boss could use that calendar and put everybody's schedule in Outlook. It's just, he doesn't use it that much, and other people, and I'm the only, me and one other person use the calendar a lot, so it's just not conducive to put all of us on there. Task, I can set up tasks in Outlook, and when I set up a task, it's like reminding me to, let's see, do laundry, and then I can put a date on it of today, or I can put a date on it of, or actually I put a date on it that was due today. And then when I look at my to-do list, well, where'd it go? I let's see, go to Richmond. Let's make this something much more interesting. I can put a due date on it and do what I want. I could also categorize this by colors. So you can use those category colors all over the place in Outlook. Now, because at my first job I used Outlook, I just got to where I use Outlook all the time for everything. I don't happen to use the to-do list because it's just another place to find stuff. I mean, but you could put when all your papers are due. I usually put that on my calendar with a reminder of like maybe a week before or 3 days before, you know, whatever I need to be reminded to get started and get that paper done. Some people schedule everything they do on the calendar, when they eat, when they do laundry and all this other stuff, because they need to be highly structured so that they get everything done. I don't want to be deleting that many things off my calendar. An associate of mine here in the library doesn't delete stuff on the calendar, so she can go back and see what was scheduled when and where and what she was doing. That drives me nuts. I don't like having things cluttered, so I delete things as I finish them. And if I need to keep track of stuff, like when I'm training, I have to keep track of how many classes I run, when they're run, how many people showed up. Then I keep a Word document with that in it by date and just keep track of it that way instead of trying to keep it all on my calendar, because I like clean stuff and I like deleting stuff, saying that I finished with it, I'm done. Now the other thing I do on my calendar, because my quarters are quarters, not semesters, is I put in a little reminder, and this one I just do as an all-day event. I don't do it as a specific time, and it's an all-day event for this day, so it doesn't have any time associated with it. And I just put like week 4, because this means that on that date I start week 4 in my particular class, and I have to do week 4 assignments. So I don't get confused, because I've got 3 classes, I've got all my work here, and I've got personal stuff that I have to keep track of what week am I in my classes. I don't do one for every class, I just do it for the whole week. But that way I don't get confused. And like, for me, even though my weeks show up on Monday, I move this one to Wednesday just to keep me track that this week I'm in week 3 and I need to do week 3 assignments. And like you can see, I've got stuff on the weekends, so I can kind of keep track of what my weekend schedule looks like. So when a friend says, "Are you free?" the only time I mess up is when I don't look at my schedule before I say yes. And invariably, when I don't look at my schedule, I say yes when I should have said no, let's pick another week. But this is pretty much it for Outlook and time management and so forth. So I'll open it up to any questions, and I know some of you have to get to another class.
Backing all the way up to the beginning of everything.
Sure.
My Outlook, what I am using an iPad. Do you know if I'm going to be able to get through everything? Like, I can download PDF, I can go through PDF for professors or whatever, but like this Outlook calendar, is this through my CVCC account? Like,
I don't know. Well, in CVCC for students, you use Gmail. We don't use Microsoft Mail. It's Gmail, which I believe is Google. So you couldn't use that in Outlook, I don't think. And I think when you download Office 365 as a student, I don't think it includes Outlook. I think it just does Excel, PowerPoint, Word, and maybe, I don't know if it does Access or not.
Do you know if, I think I saw that on iPad. I think Apple would take Outlook, right?
I don't know. I would have to go home and look at my iPad and see if I have Outlook on it. I'm having trouble getting Office 365 on my iPad because when I log in with my email, it's only showing me things that I can buy. It won't show me the free stuff. So I need to bring my iPad in and go talk to ID to find out what's going on.
See, I'm wondering if I'm going to be able to just use this iPad for everything that I need here.
I don't think so usually because like using Word and Excel and PowerPoint and all that, usually it has quite a bit of the functionality, but not necessarily all the functionality that you would on a desktop system.
Right.
And
So I
it's,
have to do this stuff.
so I don't know, I know some things on the iPad will not run, like, what is it?
Well, it doesn't
It's
want
not-
to take Google, it doesn't want to.
Yeah, it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't like Google, it doesn't like, one of the video things, and I can't think of what it is right offhand. It's one of the video flash player, I don't
Right,
think,
it would-
you can get a generic thing that's for Apple that mimics Flash, but
Sounds like
I don't,
Adobe or something.
but I don't know what it is. You can get Adobe, so you can get a lot of things on the iPad, but you can't get everything that's Microsoft on the iPad because it's Apple, and they don't always play well together. Now, if you got like one of those little smart tablets that's Windows, then you probably would have all the functionality that you need. But iPad is Apple, and they play well, pretty well, but not 100% with Microsoft.
Right, so I see you're using a mouse with all of this.
Yes,
So, I mean.
you would have to click your keyboard
That
to
would be
get
the
it.
same as. the
Yeah,
touch.
touching your keyboard,
Okay.
yeah. But again, I don't know if Outlook is part of the Microsoft suite that you can get on the iPad for free through Office 365. And I haven't had a chance to go play with Office 365 because I can't get it downloaded yet to see how it works versus, this is like when you install on a desktop Office 2013, you get Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Access, and Outlook. These are those applications that install on a desktop. And I just haven't had a chance to play with the Office 365 suite. I meant to bring in my iPad this week and I just keep forgetting
No,
it.
this is very new, and it's so nice just to be,
Yes,
to go everywhere, and I, you know, I just don't know where I'm gonna dead end with it. And
Yes.
it sounds like eventually I am.
well, you will on some things. I guess because we're such a Microsoft campus, even though I love the iPad, and I have one personally, and I wouldn't give it up for the world, for a new student trying to do things on a tablet versus buying a desktop system, I would advise you to get the Microsoft version of a tablet and not the iPad.
Well, I need a computer, and I'm trying to decide HP or, you know.
But the best thing to do would be go to talk to IT help desk in Amherst Hall. If you go into Amherst, make a left at the first hallway and go all the way down. It's not all the way down the hall, but it's past the next set of doors. There's a glass door that says IT help desk. Is go talk to them and see if they can advise you. I don't keep up with all the other devices that are out there, so I really don't know them that well. I just know a couple of years ago, Microsoft came out with a smart device like the iPad that does Microsoft applications. And so it plays better and plays more nicely with Microsoft than necessarily the iPad. And it's not that the iPad's bad or that Apple's bad, it's just they're two different worlds.
Competitors.
Yeah, they're competitors.
All right, well, I did get a keyboard for the, do you have a keyboard for yours?
No, I didn't, because I'm on my desktop so much.
Yeah, that's true, you have that, so I went ahead and got the keyboard, and I really like it.
Yeah, it's good.
nice, but
Is it a US, it's gotta be a Bluetooth keyboard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the only thing I hate about that iPad, I wish they put a plastic USB port on it.
Yeah.
That
Maybe
aggravates
they'll
me.
come, maybe, but my kids need one too, so I need a desktop, but I don't wanna go, I know that when you're just doing your daily, even if it's just school, I think a lot of us buy these laptops that will never use everything that's in
That's
it.
right.
So I hope to,
Yeah.
somebody
Well, what
will
I
lead
would
me in
do-
the right direction.
I'd go talk with the IT help desk, and there may be one person on there that's pretty up with it that you could talk with that would help you. They're not every one of them is necessarily gonna be able to help you with it, but I would talk to your school and see what they advise for your kids, because they may be Apple iPads all over the place, and if they are, then the teachers are gonna be able to help your students with it. Or if they're using Microsoft tablets, then you probably want to get whatever is being used the most at wherever you're going to be using it, because that's where you're going to be able to get the available help.
True.
But like Outlook, I have no idea if it works on an iPad, because I haven't been able to get Office 365 downloaded to mine yet. and I've got to get my iPad in here. I'm gonna have to put it on my calendar.
I am the same way. I don't deal with the calendar like I should, but I need, especially now in school, this is my first semester, so now in school with the kids and all, I'm gonna have to, or I'm gonna fall apart.
Yeah.